Hey guys, Paleo Gamer here. Starting off this video guide with my Varunastra Reave character. It's my very first build, so if you have any tips, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, or on the forum post as well. Just gonna have an Atziri run going off in the background, and mind you, this is my very first time that I've ever even tried Atziri this day about a week ago. And I did pretty well. Obviously, I had to learn all the fights, and every character that I've tried before this, I've never even tried. I did try one time with it was a spectral throw character back in the day, probably 2 seasons ago or 2 leagues ago, and I used a lot of portals, and I didn't even get past double vol. So after that, I just decided that I just wouldn't even bother trying, and I was just following builds, following builds. Um, and I never really even made my own build. I was just following builds every time that I made a new character. And I feel like after roughly 2,000 hours of playtime, that I would have more knowledge of the game. But I started to realize that when I was making builds for Grim Dawn, I started to really understand the game at a good level. And the the amount of understanding you get when you make a guide, it really helps with just gameplay in general. And then I kind of took that from Grim Dawn and decided to translate that over to Path of Exile. And so this is my very first guide, obviously. And so we're going to start here. I'm going to kind of just go through. Trash is not really an issue with this build. It just kind of goes through, and big monsters like this, we are Gladiator, and we do have the bleed, and when they explode, or when they're, they have a chance to explode when they're on low life, and they explode for 10% of their max health, which means that once one die in its bleeding, typically you just destroy the entire pack. So it actually clears trash very, very quickly, which is cool. So we'll skip to Trio. So here's Trio fight. My goal was to kill Alali, I think is her name, first, obviously, and then the other two, I ended up killing the Vol Molten Shell guy, or the Molten Shell guy, second, and then the Cleave guy third. Their names are all kind of weird, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. So overall, it went pretty well. For this fight, I used 2 life flasks. I used a normal instant recovery on low life flask, and then I also used a instant recovery staunching Atziri's flask. I used a sulfur and a granite with extra armor, and the sulfur I think had just extra charges, so I can get like 4 uses out of it. Overall, the fight went really nicely. This run was completely deathless. A couple of close calls with this cleave guy. This bleeding guy, I think, when I ran this a couple times, I think I did like 7 or 8 runs total. I did die a couple times. I think I found that killing the bleed guy second was actually easier for me. Maybe just because of the bleed. Obviously, I'm dipping hella low with from the bleeding. But I did eventually end up killing him after some running around. Just there, it looks like. Yeah, so just there, killed him. Pretty much what I was just doing is I was kind of like rolling bleeding around, just getting enough flask charges to go through his bleeds. And other than that, it was not too bad. They got a decent pair of Arzies. That was kind of nice. Then of course trash, not a problem. As you see, once they get low life, the entire pack just blows up. That's pretty cool there. And then we go to your Atziri. And I think this was my 6th attempt, or sixth not attempt, 6th kill. So this was about the time where I started learning the fight and actually understanding everything. I did look up some guides on how to do it, so I read it, but until you actually get in there and do it, you're not really gonna know exactly how to do it, and you're gonna make mistakes, and that's fine. That's fine. You've got 6 portals. My recommendation is to level first and don't waste all of your experience, because the first couple times through, I did die a few times. And other than that, it was just a pretty easy fight. The nice thing about this is we have a decent bit of spell block, so even if you mess up, and you will make mistakes, a lot of the mistakes that I make in here, I block. Cool. Take no damage from it, so it's pretty cool that way. I did find the biggest problem with this build, I guess, and it's probably with every multi-strike build, is that when you right-click once, even or multiple times, and you need to move quickly and react quickly, the biggest problem that I had was your movements are delayed because of the multi-strike. You're attacking 3 times in a row, and it's hard to move away from some of the flame blasts. As you saw, I got hit a couple times. Luckily, it doesn't one-shot us, even at 4,300 life, and you'll see later on that we actually have more life now, and we will have more life later on as well. 4,300 is pretty low, I'd say. I think at this time I was like 130% max life, so I did plan to go above 150, 150%. And I also got a belt with more max life and a pair of gloves with more max life. So after this video, you'll see we're sitting at like 4,770, I think. And our goal is to be above 5,000, which should be no problem. The next couple levels will just be pure life nodes. I think we'll get like 14% more life in 2 levels, and we're almost to our next level, so that's pretty cool. But other than that, I did fly through here, did kill her. I did find out that I did have my Enfeeble, casting damage taken Enfeeble still on, so I was casting Enfeeble on myself a couple of times, so it was a little slower than you might normally see. But I figured that out about halfway through. I think somebody in the chat mentioned it. Other than that, we run through, and I think this is where we pop in there and kill her maybe, and now she got one more ad phase. Yeah, there we go. And after this ad phase, pretty sure she does a double big flame blast, which I didn't know she could do. And if I would have just stayed there, I probably would have just killed her, but I was rolling blading, I was scared. So she did the double flame blast, I attacked her, and then I'm like, okay, cool. So that's the kill. So she, it is definitely Atziri viable. Not a problem there. So let's get into the character's gear, and we'll get in there and start doing our thing here. Let me do D&D. All right. So the build focuses around Varunastra. This sword, the biggest thing to look at is at the bottom here. Counts as all one-handed weapon melee types. This means that every skill node we get, every anything that applies to a one-handed weapon melee, is going to count for this sword. So even skills that you can use any skill essentially that is a one-handed melee weapon type. So if it requires axes, this counts. If it requires maces, this counts. It counts as everything, so you're able to still whirling blades, which is awesome. As if like you were using like a mace, you wouldn't be able to whirling blades, I'm pretty sure. Right. So it's really nice. So you could even do like a Sunder. That's the kind of nice thing. This it's not even limited to Reave whatsoever. I chose Reave because I never had done a Reave build before, and a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, do a Reave build. It looks really fun." And I'm like, "Okay." So me and him kind of worked together on the skill tree, worked together on the character. So it actually worked out really well. But yeah, you could easily swap in. Like if you don't like the playstyle of Reave, you don't have to change a thing except for your actual gem slots. You could just change your 5-link around, and whatever colors match for you, whatever skill works for you, the skill tree will not change whatsoever, because whatever applies to the sword is what's going to apply to the skill, which is perfect for it. So if you wanted to do Sunder, you could probably do a Sunder build. If you wanted to do like double strike, you could do double strike. You could do probably cleave. I haven't really tried anything but Reave, to be honest, except for when I was leveling up. I leveled as Sunder and it was really good. But that just might have been Sunder being good. But either way, so we'll start off with gear. Like I said, Varunastra is the main sword. You're going to want the highest damage you can get. I was able to pick this one up for like 3 or 4 chaos. I was buying these swords from the get-go, right when the game pretty much first released. That people were selling them for like 1 to 4 chaos. For like perfectly rolled ones, and I'm like, okay. When I first saw the sword, I saw so much potential in it, and I was like, this sword can literally do anything. It's like the jack of all trades, so this character was called Jack of Varunastra. Pretty cool, I think. Kind of like the play on Jack of all trades. So this character can use any skill, it's not just Reave. But I chose Reave. So we're using Herald of Ash, Hatred, Molten Shell. Molten Shell can be switched off for whatever you want. I actually don't even use it anymore. It explodes so quickly, even at level 19. on boss fights they attack you like once and it blows up. I was gonna try to use it for like the additional armor, and it just got to the point where you were just casting it so often it just wasn't worth it. So I ended up using like Vol Molten Shell instead. Vol Molten Shell lasts the entire duration, so it's giving you 812 armor the whole time. And it also explodes for a pretty good amount of damage, almost 2,000 damage every explosion. And if you're in the middle of an AOE pack and they're all just attacking you, it just explodes 100 times over. So it's pretty cool. And I attached that with Enduring Cry. We're doing self-cast Enduring Cry for endurance charges. You only have to do that like once every like 10 seconds or 8 seconds, something like that. It's not that big a deal. We do increased duration for Vol Molten Shell and Vol Haste. And then our helmet is just high armor, max life, whatever resistances you need. Same thing with gloves. The only difference with gloves is I did go for the attack damage leech as mana. Because in the skill tree that you guys see on the forums, and the forums post will be down below, because there is a written guide as well as this video guide. I did went down this path here from here and grabbed the life leech nodes here, but I figured for 3 skill points, I could just get it on the gloves, and I'm sacrificing a physical attack damage instead of the life leech, or I'm sacrificing the physical attack damage for life leech, and then I'm also getting 3 skill nodes back. And the difference you'll see in the tree is that those 3 skill points that were here, I grabbed armor, evasion, and life. I grabbed the next skill, dexterity node, just to get to another max life node here, because we're going to be getting these as well. So the next 2 levels will be here and here, and that's why we're at 4,700 as opposed to 4,300 in the video. And in the video, I was using a Doriani's belt. Doriani's belt it's still good. This was the really well rolled Dorianis that I had. It's good, but it has no max life on it, so it's really kind of worthless to use at this point. I'd rather just have more max life. It is a bit more damage. I think a total of, let's see here. I don't have hatred on. So 40,358, 41,000. So maybe 700 damage, 700 DPS, which isn't bad, but you're sacrificing 100, I don't know what, 110, 210 life for that damage. I'd rather just take the more max life, especially once our goal is to go above 5,000. So once we get these couple skill nodes, these 3 here, will be above 5,000 pretty easily. So yeah, next thing, our boots. They're the same thing. Max life. Try resistance if you need it. Double resistance if you want movement speed. I chose not to go movement speed route. Sure, I move slow as hell here, but when I'm whirling blading around in the middle of a map, it's pretty fast. Especially when you have frenzy charges and onslaught up, you whirling blade just fine. So it's not really that big of a deal. And in the boots, I have casting damage taken, increased duration, Tempest Shield, and Vol Reave. In the gloves, I have Fortify, Whirling Blades, Blood Magic, faster attacks. So if we do need Fortify on like the hard boss fights, we can Whirling Blade through them, then continue attacking and do that every 5 seconds or so. And our belt, as I mentioned, Tri-Res, max life. Use a Rustic Sash if you want more damage. Pretty simple there. Rings, just get physical attack damage to attacks. Get as much max life as you can, get whatever resistances you need to fill out, and then same thing with both rings. You want the same thing, just as much max life as you can. Fill out your resistances in rings. That's what I feel. You can get a lot of resistances in rings, and our necklace is pretty damn good. We needed some stats, obviously, so this is taking care of our dexterity and intelligence requirements. Without it, everything goes off. So we need that, but it also gives a lot of attack damage to our attacks. There's a decent max life, some resistances, 16 all resistances, and then of course +4 to life gained for each of our attacks is pretty nice. And then our chest piece, we're working on trying to get a 6 link. We have a 5 link right now. I've been trying my damnedest to get this thing to 6 link. I've spent 655 fusings trying to get this thing 6 linked, and so far no luck. But I will keep trying. I've gotten a couple 5 links on this thing, and this is the 3rd lightning coil I've tried to 5 or 6 link. And the second one that I bought minus this one, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to six link it, and if it five links, I'll just sell it because I bought it for really cheap. At this point, I need to six link it, or else I'm out like so many exalted worth of fusings. So my kind of thought process is try to go as deep as I can to hopefully go under 10 exalted worth of fusings, or 11 exalted, whatever they're worth right now. But lightning coil is just super, super strong. It really allows you to go to higher end maps because you're taking 30% of your physical damage to lightning damage. And then your lightning resistances is mitigating that physical damage that you're taking by 75%. So you're really reducing that damage you're taking by quite a lot. And then also the way that armor works, you're really you're helping your armor by there's like a formulation of how much damage you take and what armor can do to that damage, and then converting it to your resistances really helps that formula out a lot. Don't know exactly how it is, but in our setup here we have Reave, added fire damage, weapon elemental damage, multi-strike, and melee physical damage. And our sixth link would be added our physical to lightning. You gain an additional 24% lightning damage as extra lightning damage, and then it also converts it to lightning damage, which would help for like physical reflect if you really need to. But it would probably make you then susceptible to elemental reflect, but not that big of a deal. Typically, you're not going to run reflect maps too often. It can do it. I've done a double reflect map before. It was only a tier 1 to be fair, but it was a corrupted physical and elemental reflect, and I was able to fly through it no problem. Big groups of things tended to kind of mess with the health pool a tad, but as long as you kept an eye on it, rotated your flasks, it was no problem. So it can definitely do all the reflect maps. Just gotta be careful. What else we got here? For flasks, I use Taste of Hate. It's optional. In replace, you can use like a sulfur flask with armor on it. This one here. So this has 90% increased armor, and that also gives you 40% increased damage. And I would recommend trying to get increased charges if you could, or less charges used, so you're able to get like 4 uses out of it. This has 3, but it had a decent armor roll, so I kept it. But then I also got this Taste of Hate, and I said, Taste is just so much better. Rumi's Concoction is insanely good for this build because since we are a gladiator, we have our spell block, or all of our normal block converted to our spell block. So just sitting here in town without Tempest Shield, we have 46% chance to block. We have 49% with Tempest Shield, and that's on our cast on damage taken set up on our boots. So we'll always have Tempest Shield up, and that gives us a 3% block. And then with Rumi's Concoction up, you see when I hit that, I go max spell block and 4 away from max normal block. And this is really awesome because since all of our block is converted to our spell block as well as a normal block, Rumi's actually gives 35% to your spell block because it kind of double dips like that. And we're also, of course, getting armor. So this flask here is about a 10 chaos flask for a decent one like this, and it's really, really nice. Definitely advise getting it. It's really awesome. It helps a lot. It's 75, it pretty much maxes your block whenever it's up, and you can't die essentially with it up. I will get 4% more block from the skill tree. These 2 points here, shield block, that's what I would recommend, 4 points. So after I get these 2 life nodes here, I'll probably get these 2 shield block nodes, and that'll put us at 88. And then the last couple of levels will probably just be getting, I want to get another jewel socket because we can really get some crazy DPS from jewel sockets. As you see here, this gives us 29, 30, 41% melee damage plus some cold resistance on this jewel alone. We can probably get about probably 45%, maybe 48% on like a perfectly rolled jewel physical damage for our setup. And then you could get attack speed on that, which would be crazy good. It might be worth a lot of money, but when you look for the jewels, you could get it with swords, you can get it with axes, you can get it with like physical damage. So if you could find like a jewel that had like physical damage to axes, swords, and maces, you can still use that because it triple dips into all 3 of those, kind of like in the skill tree here, like Deadly Deliente. These all triple dip into all of these. Although it says it's claws, daggers, and swords, since Varunastra says it counts as those weapon melee types, it counts for all of them, which is awesome. So these all triple dip there, and then when you're over here, they double dip for here for axis swords, and then of course when you're over here, you can get all of these nodes here because these are with axes, so that's cool. We get onslaught, perfect. Get here, calling strike, and this is only when they stun the enemy with calling strike. But it's still a good amount of damage on all of these nodes here. Same thing with here. And here as well. Increased area of effect of our Reave, which isn't too bad at all. And that pretty much sums everything all up. Like I said, we're aiming for around 5,000 max life. Getting a couple more jewels would be nice, but we're really only close to 1. For our bandits, we go Oak, 40 health. We go Kill All on Cruel. And then on Merciless, I went with an Endurance charge, which gives us 4 Endurance charges total. You could go with Frenzy, because Frenzy is pretty nice DPS gain. So you can do Endurance charge, or you can do Frenzy charge. It's kind of up to you. If you went Endurance charge, like I did, at first I planned to get more Endurance charges, because Endurance charges are really strong. So I could, instead, I guess, of getting the Jewel Sockets, I could get more Endurance charges there, and then another Endurance charge here. But that's, I'm not sure if I plan to do that yet. That's just kind of like in the thought process. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, or go to the forum post on the forums that will also be posted in the description. And you guys have a nice day.